Hey, welcome back to the channel. You guys already saw the preview, and this time around we are going to be doing a smaller front yard. And the reason for this is because a lot of places happen to have this type of thing, which is that the front yard is not so big and you may have more space in the back, but you still want to make it look nice and attractive. So before we get to the details, let's do a little disclaimer right now. And yeah, some of my designs and ideas. So one of the things that I want to do with this channel is just show you some of the ideas and some of the design process to get to this point. Unfortunately, I'm not going to show you a whole lot about that time lapse as far as building stuff. And it's not that I don't really want to. There's plenty of that stuff already on YouTube that you guys can search all over the place. But the idea of this channel is to show you if you are either a new homeowner or you are planning to remodel your front yard or even purchase a home that already has, I guess, somewhat of a landscape, but you want to remodel that, or even your own currently home, and you just want to kind of make it new. Now, I'm going to be giving you some ideas of how to plan to do that. One of the things that I see in some of the remodels is that homeowners will go and buy a few things from, different vendors, trees, shrubs, and that sort of thing, and they'll kind of put them in, but they don't really know where they're going with this whole thing. And then by the time they realize that they have a really good spot, now they gotta rip stuff out and they gotta redo the whole thing. Essentially means a lot of work that you're putting your time in, but also a lot of this stuff that you purchased that's kind of going to waste, especially if you put something in the ground like say a shrub or a tree, and then you gotta take it out to use that space for something else, be it a water feature or a paver patio or another type of patio or anything else. So that's the idea of the design process that sometimes you just don't think about it, and you want to have a pretty good idea and kind of imagine what it would be once this is completed. And that's the whole thing about this, how to have those things set in place and then actually make them happen. So with that being said, I know I'm doing a little bit of a ramble, but just to give you guys some ideas as to where I'm coming from and why to me it's important to have a design first before you start, because you really want to know where you are going to end up, be it if it's your front, side yards, everywhere else that you want to do a landscape, and also the styles. If this is something that you want to do more xeriscape, if you're thinking of doing like a pond of some sort or a water feature of some sort, that is the idea. Have a plan where you want it and then kind of build it out that way. That way you don't have to kind of go over, rip stuff out over and over again. So with that being said, let's move on to this space. Now this yard is not very big, at least the front is not very big, but you want to obviously make it look nice. Now, when you are seeing this video, this was right after we did a few of the installations as far as the turf that was recently installed. So, you'll see some of that sort of gaps that eventually they're going to come together and you'll see the nice green turf on top. as we kind of move along, you see a few things that we added. Now, this area happens to be in a forest, and because of that, the HOA for that area has a few rules and a few guidelines that we have to kind of go along, especially for safety. Safety in case there is a fire, and if there is a fire, you definitely want to limit a few things. So nothing too crazy as far as putting a lot of stuff, especially right next to the house. They actually have this guideline where we have to stay 5 feet away with any type of shrubbery, either be a perennial, shrub, and or tree, which makes sense, especially if that can be fuel where this can make it to where the house can catch on fire. So with that being said, there's a few of those things that we kind of sort of kept in mind, and at the same time we want to dress this area up. Now, we didn't have a lot of space to work with, but enough to add some interest to this area. Now, one of the things that you probably will see first is that the grass itself is not very big. In fact, it was only about 400 square feet of grass, which means that it's not a lot, as far as a lot of sod to mow, but enough to make this area green. Also, we added a dry river bed. Now, as far as dry river beds, you can really make them however you want. That also includes the stone. However, the stone is going to be dependent on your area. But for this area, we used one that was 3 feet wide, and that can change depending on how much you want this to really turn around. So you really want to focus on the curves, as you're doing this dry river bed, and then adding the bigger stones on the outside and kind of mixing the ones in between. So generally what I like to do as far as when we're designing is getting something that's between 5-inch to 12-inch, give or take, having the bigger ones, the ones that are closer to 10 to 12 inches, kind of on the outside, so kind of grab this sort of bigger ones and then having the smaller ones in the middle. And then you could have some of the bigger ones in the middle as well, and maybe having even some boulders on the sides, and you can even add some ornamental grasses depending on your taste. But that's kind of what we have on this design. You also notice that they have a lamp in the front, and that's one of those things that I mentioned earlier about the requirements from this HOA. So we were kind of doing those things, and then the homeowner wanted to have a water feature. Now, think about this. They don't have a lot of space. They don't have a lot of height. So depending on these factors, you may want to think about something sort of smaller, a little bit more compact, but something that looks nice, especially if you're going into the entrance of the home. So for that reason, we did a bubbling boulder. This bubbling boulder is not very big, and this will depend on your space, one, but also on how big you want it to be, and also the sound of this water, and also maybe depending on what you have right next to it. In this case, there is inside the home a small office, so if you open your windows, you'll hear this water running. So with that being said, you may want to think about the catch base, which is that thing below that's gonna catch all the water. So you may want to think about either making it yourself with some blocks, as in you have your boulder, you'll drill the holes in, or you can purchase this itself. There are several companies out there that can give you this specific thing. It can be even something like some stones that are already pre-drilled, or even some that will look more like a tree, something that will be like a 3-stone pillar type of thing. And there's a few other designs out there. Pictures I'm going to be putting there here. You probably saw those as I'm saying all this. But in this case, the homeowner wanted to choose her own boulder, so that's what we did. We went to a rock yard and she picked the one that she really liked. And so that's the idea that we used for this one. And you could even do that yourself. You can go to a rock yard and choose the one that you really like. Different kinds of boulders out there, so there might be something that you really like. So with that being said, we have this one. It's not very big, as I mentioned before. This boulder is only about 2 by 2. It's a little more than that, but that's kind of the rough idea. And the catch basin is also sort of small. Around the catch basin, we put some of the Mexican beach pebble, or so that's what we call it in the area. And you do have a few colors in that stone. This is the type of stone that when it gets wet, the colors just come more bright. That happens to many stones, but this one's even better, I gotta say. You can get some that are multicolor, some blacks, some purples, and blues. We use the blues and they look really nice with this effect. Once the water kind of touches them, it looks extra nice. And then obviously we surround it with a few different types of rocks, a bit of the mixture, as I'm always saying. But one of the things that we have in this area is that the HOA wants you to blend some of the stone of your neighbors if they come first to yours. So you'll see a little bit of that sort of transition where they don't want to really see straight lines. So we had a bit of that, kind of using some of the stone that the homeowner or the neighbor in this case had, and then kind of blend it to this one, and then from there on kind of add the own stone of the homeowner's choice for this one, which was more of a gray mixed with some tans in there. And that's kind of what we have for this, and the same goes on the opposite side. Now that one we want to have a pathway, which we did with some DG or decomposed granite or crushed granite. Some even call it breeze. Depends on where you are. We'll probably have a different type of name, but that's kind of the idea that we did for this area. And this is a common material, especially in the mountain areas, where you'll see this sort of decomposed type of granites that are used for trails, be it grays, tans, and or reds. Reds tend to be really popular, especially in the Rocky Mountains, if you're kind of going in some of those national forests. So we kind of want to do a little bit of that, but kind of match a bit of the stones, so want to do more on the gray side of things. As far as shrubs and trees, tree we did an autumn blaze because they wanted some of that color. In the backyard they already had some pines, so they kind of wanted to add a bit of color in the front yard. So that's kind of what we did in the front. We mixed it up with some Susanna plums and also some yuccas. Now yucca tends to be one of those that many don't like, but this homeowner was really a fan of them, so that's what we used. And we also mixed it up with a few aspirias and poinsettias because those are hardy and look really nice as well. Something like neon flash aspirea, some snowman aspirea, even gold drop poinsettia. Now again, this is something that you're going to choose the type that you want, but this is kind of the things that we use, and also adding to that some perennials and some ornamental grasses, some feather reed grasses. And that's kind of the overall design. Now, I'm not giving you guys the specific measurements. That's gonna depend on your area. You may want to adjust some of this areas. Maybe you may want to go from, say, something like a 400 square feet of sod to maybe even bigger, maybe 600. Again, it's gonna depend on your area and how much you really want of this. And the same goes for the driveway bed. You can have areas where a little bit smaller, maybe 2 feet, and it kind of goes up to 4 feet, and then kind of goes around 3, and you can kind of mix it up as well. Now, this driveway bed actually had a function because there is a gutter in the corner of the house, and it went below the concrete for the entrance of the house. And when it rains, you kind of want this water to kind of flow out, and this was a really smart way to do it, and at the same time have a functionality and a look to it. So that's kind of the thing for this. What do you guys think about this? It's a bit of a simpler design. Obviously, this water feature gives us a lot of this nice look to it. To hear your thoughts, if you guys want to put them in the comments. If you guys want me to kind of answer some of the questions, leave me those comments and I'll try to get to those. But in the meantime, if you like any of this, thumbs if you like it, subs if you loved it, and we'll see you guys on the next video. In the meantime, take care of yourselves. Bye.